if we can quiet down and get a seat, we'll get started. Hello. Well, welcome everybody. Very excited to have this tribute to two wonderful ladies who have helped so many of us in our writing. Before I begin, I want you all to know whose idea this was. I mean, a couple people had asked that question, and how did this come about? Well, George Spain had the brilliant idea to do this. And once Sandy got wind of it, she sort of became the head wrangler and kind of responsible for pulling all of this together, including drafting some volunteers like Suzy and Bill Woods, Jerry Henderson, and Carol Grace. So thank you, volunteers, for the help in bringing that. Vera, that's right, yeah, and Vera brought a very interesting cake that we're going to see. It's sort of a bookish cake, so it's very nice. I guess I met Sally at a critique group back in 2011 at the Martin Center, and she threw me out of the critique group. This is a nice lady, and says, basically, you don't belong in this critique group. Said it really as a compliment and said, you need to get into a serious critique group. And so she did. It gave me some contact information. I did. And within a year, Aquarius Falling, my first novel, was printed, and a year after that, my second novel. So Sally, thank you for throwing me out of that particular critique group. So that's great. And then when I published Aquarius Falling, Louise read it, wrote a brilliant review that she posted on Amazon. And by the way, writers die for Amazon reviews. So if you know a writer, you read their work, post it on Amazon. It's the biggest favor you can do to a writer. But Louise fell in love with a character that I love in the story, and that is Misty Vale, who is a character that not everybody likes. So it was kind of a reinforcement there. So thank you, Louise. We have several people who are going to be making a few comments. And, the Bible talks about the first shall be last, and sometimes the first are forgotten. And one of the first people that said they wanted to talk and say some words of praise for Sally and Louise is Judith Walters. And I got busy and did everything, and I forgot to put her into the program. So she will be our first speaker.
Those of you who know me know I'm wordy, so I wrote it down. I once read that a friend is like a candle in a cold, dark night. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm soft-spoken and loud-mouthed. I once read that a friend is like a candle in the window on a cold, dark night. These two gentle ladies have been a candle in the window of my cold, dark, creative night. They came armed with great encouragement, knowledge, and gentle critiques. It was never acceptable to them for fledgling writers to be squelched for lack of perfection. Their life and their work attest to the fact that we're all indeed works in progress. They continue to grow and learn as they lead us along a pathway of growing. No right way, no wrong way, just a search for our own unique way. Thank you, Sally and Louise. We love you.
Thank you, Judith. Sandy Zieger, who was sort of a major honcho in putting this together, is our next speaker. That's you.
Did you say Sandy?
Oh, Sandy. Okay.
A lot of years ago, somebody said, you know, if you're interested in writing, you need to go to there's a critique group at the library. And I said, well, great, I didn't know there was such a thing in Franklin. So she said, but I'll tell you, they're all older ladies. Like I'm not. And you might really watch what you take. And I said, because she knew me, I guess, better than. Anyway, I get in there and I'm watching myself, and somebody reads their work, and Sally and Louise look at each other, and Louise says, I think that's sexual. And Sally said, oh, definitely, definitely. I thought, okay, I'm in the right group. I just want to say, I mean, these people are passionate about what they do. And we should all be passionate about something. I don't care if it is, you know, Minions. We need to be passionate about something and love what we do. These ladies do. And they, thankfully, for all of us, have been willing to share. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sandy. Suzy Ross.
Hi, everybody. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I was in a writing group for about 5 years before I first met Sally and Louise. And Sally was actually my first fan outside of the writing group. And so naturally, I was floored that anyone outside my friends would, you know, actually take the time to comment on how they felt about my poetry. And I would never have continued on without her gentle encouragement, especially because when I first started going to the Saturday critique group, the first couple of times I declared that no one could criticize or even comment on one single word in what I was going to read. So for several weeks, I just read, and then there was this dead silence, and the next person would read. No. But Sally never gave up, and she continued to support me and encourage me, and I am really indebted to her. Louise was the first one brave enough to offer some criticism of my poems, and her suggestions were so on point that I had to pay attention to them. I still believe that her ear for what words go together, and more important, what words ought to be taken out for a poem is the best guidance I could ever ask for. Both of them were gracious enough to edit my little chapbook that I put out a couple of years ago. They did this simply as a gift to me. I don't have words to express what a gift this was to an inexperienced and oftentimes floundering poet. It is my firm belief that without these two women and their inspiration to others, we would not have as flourishing a writing community as we do in Williamson County. And I am absolutely beholden to each of them and infinitely grateful to them for their wisdom, graciousness, and above all, tact.
Suzy, I was hoping you'd bring a poem for today. One of your poems. That's what I was hoping for. So, if you haven't heard Suzy read a poem, it's really great. She just does a wonderful job. Next speaker, my very good friend and Janice Keck Award-winning writer, John Davis.
I had a 10-minute speech prepared. But because I stutter and have sinus drainage and requires a lot of clearing up my throat, it'll really be 20 minutes, so just bear with me on this. Sally and Louise, you know, that's really not so hot. You know that? Thelma and Louise came along a long time before Sally and Louise did. And I can't, Sally and Louise just doesn't quite set with my ear. I'm not a poet, but that doesn't quit. Mrs. Lee and Louise, that's what sets in my ear. And so I'm sorry if I'm not giving one of you as much credit as the other one, but that's the way it sets in my ear. I too met them a few years ago at the critique group upstairs, and I thought they were great. But for the first few times I was there, both of them were not there. And I thought they were the same person, that they just wore different glasses. And then later on I find out that they're totally different people. But the really neat thing was, they helped me come out of the closet. I was not a writer. I am not a writer now, but I scribble stuff at home. And so I came to this group, and so they helped me come out of the closet and tell the world I write. Now, the world being about this big, you know, there's not a whole lot of people know this. But they helped me come out of the closet, and I will forever be indebted to them for that. There's some encouragement. You have no idea what encouragement does. And when Ms. Lee did Filtered Through Time, and she opened up for submissions, I thought, well, I'm going to write this, but I didn't tell my wife I had written it and submitted it. I didn't want her to know this. And then I get an email from Mrs. Lee, and she says, well, we're going to take what you wrote. And I ran in the den where my wife was, and I said, I'm an author. I'm an author. And so that was the first time that I ever felt that I was anything close to a writer. And I see a lot of faces in this room that I have seen upstairs in the group, and I know that they have encouraged people in other places other than just upstairs. And what a fine gift they are to the community. Maybe not quite monumental. We can't put them down in the square yet for a number of reasons, but I'm telling you, they're fine, fine people, and we are certainly blessed to have them, and certainly blessed to have had them as a mentor. Thank you.
Well, you know, fiction writers are nothing but liars, and John Davis just told the biggest lie I've heard in a long time when he said, I am not a writer. He is a writer, a very good one. Nancy Fletcher Bloom, where are you? Come on up.
Thanks,
My lunch.
Did you get my lunch out of here? I've lost it. Where is it? Does anyone out there see a blue folder? Purple? Yes. Thank you. I was given 4 minutes, and those that know me knows won't happen. But I will try, I promise. Okay. I moved to Franklin in 1995, and I wandered downtown one day, and there was Franklin Booksellers. So I wandered in, and they wanted to know, what, are you here for the writers group? And I went, oh my goodness, yes. So I go in, Louise is there, yeah. We start talking. We found that we both lived at Colony House condominiums, which was a blessing. So she was around the corner. We continued to talk. Our friendship grew, and I was working, and I had a little green doormat. Well, Louise asked me one day, she said, would you please, if you would, look at some of my work? And I thought, oh, this woman has been published many times, and I was just absolutely thrilled. So I would come home and I would find 4 or 5 sheets of paper under my doormat, or a chapter. She was working on Camden Rest. I think you renamed it. But I, being from South Carolina, she was picking my brain about certain things there. So our friendship grew, and one day I told her I had written a short story. And she said, I would be happy to look at it. And I thought, oh, piece of cake, it's already done. It was a Halloween story about cast iron dogs. So I gave it to Louise, and the next day we met, and this is what I saw when she brought my story back. Bright red. Those of you know the red pen, it's not the original, but you get the picture. So she worked with me on that. There was a contest going on in Williamson County for writers for the anthology. And so I bravely took, along with Louise, to take my manuscript. I started to hand it and I froze. Well, Louise, you know how short Louise is. She got her hands on it and she was pulling, and I was pulling back, and the publisher's standing there like, what is going on? But she got it out of my hands and handed it to them. I owe it to Louise that I am published, finally. Thank you, Louise. As our friendship grew, we talked about writers' groups and several things. She talked to me about never losing my voice. No matter what, you keep your voice. So along came Sally a little later. And the woman that I heard her talk about, it was actually at the old CWW meeting. And I thought, this woman is so talented. Well, moving ahead, there were 5 of us that met at my house once a month. It was Sally, Louise, and 2 other people and myself. And I came to know Sally in a way. She was so, and I heard the word gentle used over here somewhere, not so gentle with mine. She hit the end of my couch one time. But it was all for my good, and I listened. So later on, I found that these 2 people, I could call Sally sometime after dawn, and I know it was after dawn because she was just starting to go out and feed the horses. She never lost patience with me. I could pick the phone up at midnight or whatever, I have many times, call Louise and just start talking about a phrase or a word, and she would just get it right then. So the 2 people, they encouraged me constantly. Moving ahead, when I finally got published again, I remembered what these 2 had taught me. Keep your voice, and if there is a word or a phrase, fight for it. If someone wants to take it away from you, you fight for it. Well, I fought them. And I thought I won, but I didn't. The 2 women, they knew they had taught me well. I love both of you dearly. Thank you so much.
I posted this announcement on several websites and to try and draw as many of you as I could, and thank you all for coming. And one of the posts was on Author Circle, and I was able to read everybody's comments that they made, and that they could be there, looking forward to it, and how deserving Sally and Louise were. And I read one that was just so eloquent that I thought, this person has to come and talk. So I reached out to her, and Kristen Marie Grimm is here with us today and will share.
I'd like to first say that I'm so glad I'm here. I almost didn't get to make it, but I did, and I'm so glad. I first met Sally and Louise 13 years ago at a writers' conference at a church here in town, put on by the group, this wonderful group. And I was so nervous about going to the event because I had all these little collections of stories and poems, and you never know what it's going to be like when you join a writers group. And I first met Louise. She was sitting at the table and receiving the money, and her eyes just lit up, and she said, "Welcome." She said, "Oh, you're young." This was 13 years ago. I have wrinkles now. Aren't you proud of me? And she said, "You've got to go meet some other ladies in the back and order your lunch." And then I went in the back and I met Joyce Lee. And after the event, Sally was up front. She was busy. She was task-oriented and keeping to the work of the event. And I met Sally, and something endeared, which is so endearing and felt beautiful from the very moment that I met all of you. And so I have written a poem, and I think it just kind of sums up how I feel about the two of you, and how you've mentored an entire community of writers, and you've taken us in, you took me in at where I was in my level of writing, and you took my little poems and my stories and you patted them on the head. And Sally Lee, one of the things that I love when you say to people, you say their name and you say, "Good, Kristen, good," and you cheer us on. And I think that if you've been under her mentorship, you can hear your name. Good Louise, whoever you are, and it's so beautiful. And so thank you for receiving me into your group many years ago and taking my really terrible poems and stories and nurturing them. So this poem is entitled, "What I Have Learned from Sally and Louise." We do not have to be great or even good. To put the words down, we simply must be brave. In my 20s, I thought being brave about writing felt like running into a burning building to rescue a barking Labrador retriever. Sally and Louise, you have taught me that we do not have to be all that brave. There is no need to run into the flames to search for the pages. We simply need to work on our punctuation. And to be honest with ourselves and cook our daily meals with a quiet joy. To chop the celery may be the holiest practice of fiction. To stir the soup may be where all the characters live. All of this writing is not necessarily necessary. Now, how freeing is that? All of this writing is simply a practice of time in the corner of any room. For most of us, it is not the entire day or the reason we live. Instead, we live for other things, and this is where I have learned that the pages are born. Your writing has been birthed from walks to the tractor sitting for you in the barn, from the stop at the corner of 4th and Main, from the hours we love one another that become our histories, from the nights we sit up with our sick loved ones and bring them mercy. These are the moments that become the writing before we gather with our pens. Joyce Lee, our dear friend, once told me, "Write from your life, dear." And I think she is right. Sally and Louise, you have written from your lives. You have invited the characters in, and you have set them in their places and given them homes. In the same way you have cared for fiction and nonfiction, you have cared for all of us writers here in this room. You have taught us to write freely, mainly because your hope for us all crowds out the cynicism and neurotic thoughts sitting on our shoulders as we write. Your legacy to this community will be the gentleness and honesty you rendered to our work. You too have mentored us well. You have taught me mainly that the poet Mary Oliver is very right when she says, "My work is loving the world." And then without even mentioning it, you say both to me with your lives, "When you can, dear, go find a quiet place and write." So, thank you so much.
Now for the person whose original idea this was, George Spain. George Spain, there he is, hiding over here on the front row.
Well, all the words have been used by the prior speakers, so about all I can say is give a rolling amen, brothers and sisters. You know, it was such a beautiful poem. The first time I came to the writers group, I was invited by Sandy, and I believe at that time there were no other men attending, and so it was well, and I was a little anxious, but I was treated so nicely. And I had written a story that was later among some of the short stories I published. It was a story about a slave woman having a baby alone in her cabin. And it was a rather detailed accounting of her giving birth and the baby at its birth, what it looked like, and how its arms and legs were jerking and the crying it was making. And went on and finished the rest of the story. And there were some nice things said by people. And then Louise said some nice things. And then she said, "But one thing you might think about is the baby should be a little bigger." I had it as an awful tiny, tiny little baby. And she said it probably should be a little bigger. And I left there, and that just wouldn't leave my head, should the baby be bigger. And I went home, and it grew by inches. And so the baby that's in the story is the one that grew as a result of Louise's recommendations. These two very generous ladies who've given so much to all of us and to the people in this room, and their generous spirits and their intelligence. They are two extremely intelligent people. You know, we talk about the nice way they talk and support and all that. That's all true, but they're also very intelligent and they're very wise. And so their guidance is something to pay attention to. I was telling somebody earlier I met out here that one of the great things about being a writer, it has been for me, because in my earlier life I worked entirely in mental health and just wrote on the side. But after it, I took it on in a major way. And the best thing that has come from it have been the people I have met. I would have never, there are people in this room, I would have never known in this life. I would have lived and died and not known Louise and not known Sally, who both now are my friends. They're my good friends. And I thank writing for that and for the way they have established an atmosphere that is so very, very supportive to all of us. So all of you who know them know that these are two of the finest people that live in Williamson County in Middle Tennessee and in Tennessee and in the South. Thank you.
Thank you, George. The next thing that we have on the agenda is for our honorees to, we're going to put them to work, have them read to us. But before we do that, there is a Sri Lanka tradition that we want to do. And Vera, you want to do your presentation now? In Sri Lanka, whenever a person is honored, something happens.
Yeah. These two ladies, Sally and Louise, meeting you both is a pivotal moment in my life. If I'm standing here as a writer and poet, it's because of you. And Sally made me believe that I am a poet. And if I'm a joy of being, it's because they made me believe. And in Sri Lanka, the tradition, if you honor somebody, you drape them with a scarf around their neck. And I got 2 scarves I got specially for them from Sri Lanka. And so I haven't opened them, so I won't be draping them, but I would like to present them with these scarves.
Louise, are you going to wear that tiara?
I think I may just hold it.
Okay. Well, Queen Louise, why don't you come up and take a seat? Sally, would you like to come up to the table? What we'll do at this point is I will take this and make it a hand mic. And who, you want to flip a coin to decide who reads first?
Louise is senior.
Oh, that cut deep.
I've been talking and didn't get ready. Sally is ready, so excuse me. All I have to do now is find my glasses and I'll be
While she's doing that, I want to say that when this is over, these books are free. And so just come get one. Get 6, whatever you want to do. But I mean, we're selling our books, which is a little bit tacky, but no,
What do you mean we're tacky, selling books? We're starving writers. Literally starving.
I don't know how this one got down in here. But
Sally,
anyway.
tell them what your chapbook is.
Oh, okay. It's Colln. A friend wrote me when I first got sick with cancer. A friend wrote me and said, "Welcome to the Chemo Club." And of all the sweet notes I got, that was the one that just really, really made an impression, you know. So that's what this is. It's the experience of that, you know, months and months of whatever that was. And I will say, I'll brag a little. A friend who's had cancer said to me the day that I was better at expressing anguish than she was. I thought they were upbeat poems. Apparently not. But then, you know, you often don't know your you don't know yourself very well. So now, Louise, I filled up a lot of time.
Thank you. This is a story that a poem that I usually read when I read in public. So some of you have heard it, but it's okay. You're going to hear it again. I think I'll tell you why I wrote it. Nancy spoke a little bit about our friendship. I went down with Nancy to her South Carolina hometown, and she was going into family stories, and we visited with relatives of Nancy, and I wasn't involved in what they were doing because it wasn't my family, so I was just sitting in a chair over here listening. And I realized there's 3 of them. They were all talking at once. But they all knew exactly what everybody was saying. And this seems to be something that can only happen in South Carolina, maybe in Tennessee. You can, and while you listen to it, you can also think that this may be Tennessee. The name of the poem is Upcountry Carolina Homecoming. Cousins kissing, talk and listen on parallel tiers. In a cappella roundelay, matching syllable to syllable, they sew words lightly, soul-warming pieces of patchwork quilts, stitched together with hugs. They discuss ancestors as part of present lives. Great-granddaddy met great-grandmama at Seneca in 1904. They dissect adored sepia pictures for forehead and lips, laid fingers across chins and noses. See that mouth? That's James. There's great-granddaddy for sure, there in Tommy's eyes. Conversation boils like cresting cups of mountain rivers. Tongues curl richly around native names. Tugelo, Tukoa, Wakula, Walhalla, Nantahala, Sawanoa, Tuckasegee, Cooey. Crooning tones blend with shade tree music, a flat-top guitar, banjo, fiddle, clacking spoons and clogging feet on squares of wood. Sweet dulcimers sing above the feathery squeals of playing children. Mothers smile. Honey, just match that light on for me. Where's Grandmama? Oh, she had to go make a branch. Never mind, you might want to put more rich crackers in that macaroni and cheese pie. Don't that smell good, though? Kitchen smells, biscuits, chicken, ham, barbecue, swirl out the gladded noses, braiding and unbraiding with scents of hibiscus, gardenias, purple thrift, roses, creamy lilies. Old horseshoe pitchers under the chinaberry tree pause and think eagerly of the feast to come after the blessing. They laugh about their long childhood wait for the old-timey preacher to bless the children, bless the green grass, bless the blue sky, bless the cooling food to our hungry bodies. The old men bless the young minister who sends God a short email instead of an epistle. They speak briefly with lowered lids of emotional blessings, of children, of wives. That grandson of mine is a pistol, all right. Then they pick up horseshoes again, not looking at the one who stands in silence, remembering grief. Half focused on target stakes, leaners, ringers, they listen for the signal to break bread together with kinfolk, savor already respect due and given to the elders of the clan, there at that long table. Upcountry Carolinians are huggers, touchers, givers, dancers, singers, fighters, drinkers, hunters, tellers of stories, lovers of God and guns, children and country, of women and fierce freedom-fighting men and time-misted Scots tartans, yesterday's gray homespun and today's camouflage. Upcountry Carolinians are people-minded, mountain-minded, beloved. Thank you. Now it's your turn.
Well, she says we're going to take turns. So, and I know each of us has one long and two shorts. So, you get the long one first. I do want to say that this room is, y'all, can you hear me? Is this right? This room is full of amazing people. And I wanted to introduce some individuals, and one of them said, no, don't do that. And I realized, no, I shouldn't, because every one of you is just unbelievable. But and some of you don't know each other. One of the people that some of you don't know came very early, and that was wonderful for me. And one of the people that some of you don't know came in late, and that was wonderful for me. But I need to give her a hug before she leaves. And so what you should do afterwards as you break up is look around and see who you don't know and talk to that person, because who you don't know is just amazing people. Some are prose, some poetry, some just thinking. Thinking is always good. Now I'll stop lecturing and read. Good neighbors. A post is so much better than a tree if one wants to catch mice. A post is steady and still, no blowing in the breeze, and it's lower to the ground than even the lowest limbs. We hawks have good eyes. Hawkeye is an honorable name. Even so, closer is better. The pasture grass grows dense and tall in this well-watered land. The mice scurry through little grassy tunnels, convenient for them, and they hope safe. As well as sturdy fence posts, the farm has a grassy jump field in which to train horses. Posts in paths hold up the jumps, and there are many of them. The grass is cut close but still thick. The mice proliferate. The barn cat does not often venture this far. We see many mice. We have good meals. We love this place, often circle the sky above, perch at ease on the ground to eat, only fly up when a horse gallops near us. So the mice cannot live here easily. Few mice tunnels puncture the ground. The riders say, thank God for the hawks. We couldn't jump in this field if hawks didn't keep those mice away.
Okay, so one of the short ones. This is one that I wrote fairly recently. I was standing at a window looking out at the dandelions, and it occurred to me that dandelions are much more important and beautiful than we realize. So I wrote a poem about them. The dandelion wine. And love your neighbor as yourself. I brought my neighbor to my house. I led her to my chair. I prepared for her a bowl of soup for comfort in her sorrow. We shared our language voices. I filled her glass with dandelion wine and spoke to her of strength to come from it, for dandelions are the strongest of flowers. Ignoring their unpopularity, they simply grow. Their thick, tough stems and very yellow crowns stand tall above grass lawns and concrete cracks. And when they are old, only children will swirl their white heads. I loved myself for loving her until doubt drifted in. How many hours must I spend on my knees? How many dandelions need I pick to distill one glass of wine for my sorrowing neighbor?
Well, I meant to bring the T-shirt that this describes, but anyway. To a beloved T-shirt. Oh my, your rags, but I had noticed not. Your frayed around the neck and short sleeve edge. How did I miss your sad and ragged lot? Perchance designed with clay pots on a ledge, distracted from the tears you show me now. Today I see 4 holes gleam daylight through that same design. Chill openings could allow improper sights, not for a stranger's view. Dear shirt, I've loved and worn many a day. I must forbear and do without soft shade of brown and green and yellow when I play. My future without you makes me sore dismayed. In our large rag bag you will soon abide, among your soft old friends who there reside.
My last one is the Christ of the Bloody Fields. Sad, he walks across the battle detritus, picks up a child's doll and puts it in his pocket. It will surprise her in heaven. And a child's foot softly cuddled in a mother's hand just an hour ago, he carries to the body, still nestled closely in her dead arms. He lets his bare feet feel sharp edges and bleeds again.
It's hard to clap for that one because it's so sad. You just want to weep for it instead. Come, son, it's time that you and your dad did some cooking. We have plenty of time, for your mother is not here. So what do you like best to eat? Let's start with that, then see what we want. Chocolate cake? Okay. Check the supplies. Yes, cocoa, flour, sugar. Have we enough butter? Better go buy butter and eggs, or we'll be out of food for breakfast. Let's get some grapes and apples, too, and eat while the cake is baking. And I'll tell you what, that store has some really good sausage. We could fry up some while the cake is baking and have it with the apples. That's delicious. Tomorrow night, maybe we'll make our own hamburgers with tomatoes and lettuce on them and put some ice cream on top of a slice of cake. Yum. Yes, we've plenty of time. We don't know when Mom will be home. She's working late at that job she loves so much.
Sally, that poem made me hungry. And fortunately, well, fortunately, we do have some food, and this is an opportunity now for book signing and socializing. We have until 11:30, which gives us about 25 minutes, so let's enjoy one another's company. We do have a cake cutting that we want to do. That's the book cake. So Vera, do you want to do that?
Say something in general response while you were still not talking all the time. We didn't plan to be heroes. We just lived. And we, when Mom asked us to when did the critique group begin, we couldn't really remember. We remembered seeing each other here and being at Nancy's house and one year in the Methodist church and some years in St. Paul's church and different people and we couldn't really remember when we knew we were a group. And when Janice offered us the boardroom that we use now, I didn't think Saturday morning would work. And Saturday morning was better than any time. It's really blossomed. And the other thing to say is Sandy brought George, but Sandy brought lots of other men too. It's more than
Sally, tell them where one of the poems in your chapbook has just been published.
Oh yeah, one of the poems in here, one called Red Shirt, has just been published in an online Scottish online journal.
So she's now European.
Global, national, international.
And before that, a friend in Germany had me send a whole book to somebody in Scotland, but that wasn't how I got up. She got up. Stella Sue right there who knew about it.
Sorry, the pieces are all different.
You need a plate if you take a piece. So get up and enjoy yourself.
Welcome to Poets from the Neighborhood. I'm Sandy Coomer.
And I'm George Spain. We're going to read to you some poems written by your friends and neighbors. We hope you enjoy them. This first one is Dancing on the Surface by S.R. Lee. Light-hearted dancer skims the surface of the land, across the soft clover, twirls among wild violets and generations old daffodils, with only an occasional scrape of gravel against a heel, a smear of mud across an ankle, overcomes gravity with leaping, hopping, spinning, running, joyous, arabesque and high tilt. The dancer seems heedless, skitters among the trees, between the barns, around the pond, down the lane, through the front hall and out the kitchen door. But see her skill as she misses by a hair's breadth the sharp kitchen table corner, dances well away from the wild rose hedge, no stray branch rakes her face, leaps the cinders of the driveway so none stick to her shoes, ducks the clothesline which would catch her neck, spins past father's grumpy refusals, tiptoes around mother's pliant sympathy, turns through the maze of social obstacles, boys who seek or avoid her, family, need, or restrict her.
At the Grocery by Vera Jaar. Wisdom wrinkled surface, glowing. Sunshine was her face. I wish I had asked her name, though she's not a person of fame. With a nod she smiled as she pushed a cart full of groceries. Wisdom of life outpoured as she may hold the key to paradise. I could not but look back as the petite old figure tackled a cart full of burden as a bouquet, fresh from the garden.
Highway 96 by Allison Cleaves. Every time I drive over Highway 96, I feel the urge to stop the car and run through the cornfields on the side of the road, and maybe I'll get lost with or without hope of return in the blinding maze. Or maybe I'll find something supernatural beyond expression. I would watch birds of prey fly unevenly and glide. I could help them look for mice in the recesses. I could feel the breeze and the tickles against my skin that rustling corn stalks make. I could lay shrouded in the moonlight, thinking about where I need to be and how I'm going to find my way. I can dream of picking buttercups and black-eyed Susans as a child on the side of the road, grasping them tightly in my hands, I used to hide underneath the stairs when I was little, pretending the light from the kitchen was the moon and the flickering images from the television were the stars. That was about as lost as I could get without someone asking me where I was. I would dream and draw and think and read and light on ideas and feel risen, weightless like a big red balloon that I saw in a French movie once in the 5th grade. A little orphan girl in a barrette with nothing in the world lost her balloon. I cried so hard the teacher made me leave the classroom. On this endless road with willows and magnolias weeping, I follow the brilliant sun as it falls into the horizon, unburdened by a sense of freedom and comforted by the big red stoplight before the left-hand turn into my subdivision.
Timeless Dance by Vera Jaar. From the one who maketh thine atom's core and danceth within, but extends beyond the galactic spins to timeless stillness that sustains. From him created you and me, thus taketh form in visible space, but at heart ticking is his grace, to dance in joyful life, in peace.
Nelson's Island by Kristen Kendall. Robben Island locked. Apartheid bars conjoin gnarled state. This chapel cage of hatred stands astraddle justice warped by color. Inside prison cells, the sounds reciting echo freedom. Men are shackled. Hope is loose, awaiting. Topple wall construct. These tides will widen, setting one man forward, merging fractured nation. Dreams embodied, drifting up, beyond Mandela, past the bitter waters, purging southern shores, atonement lobbied, country melded to forge a new era.
Wild Lily by Lydia Esmer. With a confidence contained, not gaudy, she sat, waiting pleasantly in the lounge of the tempting tree. Her dress up to there, a red strappy boot spikes piercing the air. She sparkled from glitter applied liberally. But her trade was betrayed most assuredly by the flower adorning her shoulder-length hair, a white, fully ripened lily. Because it's the eyes that mirror the soul, her eyes were my goal instead of her clothes. Approaching this barely 19-year-old, armed with only hope's ardor, she returned my gesture more than twofold. Were not angels by artists designed, given to such radiance without costly cosmetic applied? Her entrancing smile eased from me a remark well-meaning without guile. Dear one, you are so lovely. Surely you'll get by following the master, and you'll taste the sweetness of honey. I know, was her reply, in dulcet tones softly. My father is a pastor. Thank you for watching Poets from the Neighborhood. We hope you'll join us again soon.